When the nominee for America's top law enforcement position froze under questioning, you could feel the tension cut through the air. Senator Amy Klobuchar wasn't raising her voice. She didn't have to. Each question landed like a strike, quiet but devastating. Each question landed like a strike, quiet but devastating. One after another, she confronted him with his own words, his own posts, his own promises to clean house. And what began as a routine confirmation hearing quickly spiraled into something far deeper, a battle over the very idea of justice. He tried to stay calm, flipping through notes, pausing between each reply. I don't recall, that's out of context.
A doctor, so no.
But you did promote this supplement and told people that it would reverse or mitigate the side effects from COVID vaccine.
Did I give people an opportunity to make an independent choice for what's best for their families? Yes.
You did that last year, correct?
I don't have it in front of me again, Senator.
Mr. Patel, the FBI tackles some of the most complex threats that we face: terrorists, hostile foreign powers, violent gangs, fentanyl, criminal organizations. Your mission, though, has been to go after people. I've looked at it. I've read this stuff. Yes or no? When Trump wins, did you say this? When Trump wins in 2024 and is in power in 2025, we can prosecute them, referring to Justice Department officials, for an actual RICO statute violation, for criminally organizing the United States government to break the law to rig presidential elections. Did you say that, yes or no?
Again, Senator, you're reading a partial statement, so I'm unable to fully respond.
Okay, again, we'll put it on the record. X22 report podcast 20, that is from, I'll get you the date, about a year ago. One of the names on your list was Bill Barr. Chairman Grassley has called him one of the most capable cabinet officials I've ever been able to vote for. Senator Graham has said, I have nothing but total respect and admiration for the job done by William Barr as Attorney General of the United States. Is Bill Barr on your list of whatever you want to call them, been referred to as an enemies list? You've called them deep state after serving his country as the Attorney General of the United States. Is he on your list because of a personal vendetta?
Well, it's not whatever we want to call it, Senator. With all due respect, it's not an enemies list. That is a total mischaracterization.
I asked you, I actually used the words you used for the list, which was deep state, right? That's what you put at the top.
It is a glossary
against
in
the
the
Attorney
back.
General of the United States. Is it because of a personal vendetta that he's on the list? You're under oath.
I have no personal vendetta against Bill
Okay,
Barr.
he said about you, you would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That was actually in writing in his book. He had virtually, about you, no experience that would qualify you to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, and that your appointment, as noted by Senator Durbin as Deputy Director to the FBI, would happen over his dead body. Is it, yes or no, why you would put him on the list of deep state as a former Attorney General, Trump Attorney General of the United States, because he wouldn't break the law for Donald Trump? Is that why?
Absolutely not.
As you know, he repeatedly told the president in no uncertain terms that he did not see evidence of fraud that would have affected the outcome of the election. Did you say in February of 2021 that the election stuff was never my job and I stayed out of that stuff?
Again, I don't know what comment you're referring to, but I'm sure you're reading a piece of something.
You said it on Pushback on a podcast. Is it true, though, that in December of 2020, you reached out to the Trump acting Deputy Attorney General and asked him to investigate a conspiracy theory claiming that people in Italy had used military technology and satellites to remotely tamper with voting machines in the U.S. and switch votes for Trump from Trump to Biden? Is that true?
What was the date?
That was out of December of 2020.
I was Chief of Staff to the Department of Defense, so I don't believe that's accurate in any way.
Okay, that came out of testimony before Congress. I will give it to you. Have you referred to the media as the most powerful enemy of the United States that they have ever seen? Is that right?
Again, you're reading a quote. I take that you're reading it accurately.
CPAC 22324. You said we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden rig the elections. We're going to come after you whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that something you said?
That's a partial statement of what I said.
Steve Bannon's podcast. You also said you would put the entire fake news mafia press corps on your list. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I don't have that in front of me.
Benny Johnson's podcast, 8/21/23. You have said that the FBI, including today, you said that they remain utterly corrupt. This is an agency with agents who have taken down terrorists, taken down bank robbers, taken down crime. And you wrote that the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken. Do you know that under Chris Wray's leadership, he took over at a very difficult time, we all know that, appointed by President Trump, that during his tenure, the applications to the FBI has in fact tripled? Do you think people would be applying to that agency like in those numbers if they thought it was so corrupt?
The American public's trust in it is at 40%. That's an all-time low.
Did you say that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to go an extra time?
Let's see, you get a second round. Before I call on Senator Lee.
Could he just answer the question if he said that the FBI headquarters, where they investigate cybercrime and terrorism, should be shut down and opened as a deep state?
Hey, Mr. Chair.
As a museum? Did he say that the headquarters should be shut down?
Mr. Chair.
I deserve an answer to that question. He is asking to be head of the FBI, and he said that their headquarters should be shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed by over 300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Mr. Chairman, I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words. It is not some conspiracy. It is what Mr. Patel actually said himself. Facts matter.
You forget that you had 3 minutes in the next round to say what you just said.
Okay, I'll say them again.
Okay. Before I call Lee.
Mr. Chair, just parliamentary inquiry, and it was on time. It wasn't disputing any of the debate, but I intend to keep to my 7 minutes, and I appreciate you keeping everyone to it. If we go over, can we have that?
I'd have to see the full quote, but the senator wasn't letting go. Her tone stayed measured, professional, but behind it, the message was unmistakable. This wasn't just about one man, it was about whether truth still meant anything in the highest offices of power. And that's what made this hearing so gripping. Because for 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes, you could see a man caught between two worlds, the oath he wanted to take, and the beliefs he refused to deny. And what happened next exposed more than his record. It revealed the growing divide between evidence and ideology, law and loyalty. This wasn't just politics, it was a constitutional stress test playing out live. Klobuchar began by quoting him directly. Every date, every source on the record. From podcasts to social posts, she pulled his words one by one, claims that elections were rigged, that the FBI was corrupt, that police officers on January 6th were cowards. Each quote sharpened the contrast between what he'd said then and what he was saying now. He didn't deny most of them outright. Instead, he danced around them, reshaping his meaning mid-sentence. Viewers could see the pattern: doubt, deflect, distract. But what shook the room wasn't the content of his answers, it was the strategy behind them. Every "I don't remember" was a calculated pause, a wall of vagueness built to protect himself from accountability. And while senators scribbled notes, the audience at home saw something bigger than a man under pressure. They saw what happens when facts become optional. Then came the question that froze him completely. Klobuchar referenced his comments about the deep state, the so-called list of officials he'd vowed to go after. She asked if former Attorney General Bill Barr was on that list. Barr, once a key ally, now one of the few establishment figures to publicly reject conspiracy theories. The senator read aloud from Barr's own book that the nominee lacked the experience to command respect at the highest levels of law enforcement. And then she asked point blank, Is that why you put him on the list? Because he wouldn't break the law for you. For a moment's silence, you could almost hear the hum of the microphones. He shifted in his chair, adjusted his pen, and replied, "Absolutely not." But even through the camera lens, the hesitation was obvious. The exchange wasn't about Barr anymore, it was about loyalty. About whether America's next FBI leader would serve the law or personal alliances. Klobuchar didn't raise her voice. Instead, she turned the discussion toward the Bureau's founding motto: fidelity, bravery, integrity. 3 words carved into every field office, every badge. She reminded him that these weren't just slogans, they were promises. And if someone who had spent years calling the FBI corrupt and broken wanted to lead it, the American people had every right to question what kind of reform he meant. You could see some senators shifting in their seats, uncomfortable but attentive. Because this wasn't a partisan attack, it was a moral question. Can an agency dedicated to evidence be led by someone who openly distrusts evidence itself? Klobuchar framed it perfectly. If the person entrusted with upholding truth refuses to define it, what happens to justice? Her words didn't just challenge him, they challenged the entire culture of selective truth that's been growing louder in politics. And the nominee's responses revealed something larger. His habit of rewriting his past wasn't random, it was strategy. A strategy built on uncertainty. Say enough to seem confident, but not enough to be pinned down. It's the modern form of denial, not by confrontation, but by fog. He called his quotes partial, his posts misunderstood, but there's nothing partial about a pattern. Over months and years he had built a narrative where the nation's institutions, courts, law enforcement, even the press, were not partners in democracy, but enemies. The senator's questioning pulled that narrative into the light, exposing what many Americans have been quietly fearing: that power has learned how to erode truth without ever openly rejecting it. What made the exchange so intense wasn't shouting or spectacle, it was contrast. Klobuchar's composure versus his evasions. Her reliance on documented evidence versus his reliance on emotion and ambiguity. It was almost cinematic, except it wasn't scripted, it was real. A clash between the language of democracy and the language of disinformation. At one point she referenced his promotion of a so-called COVID detox supplement, asking bluntly, "Did you conduct any clinical trials before telling people this would reverse vaccine side effects?" His answer was telling: "I'm not a doctor. No data, no testing, just belief." And an audience that trusted him enough to buy in. Klobuchar's point was clear: when you build influence on fear instead of fact, you don't just mislead people, you profit from their uncertainty. The deeper she went, the clearer it became that this wasn't about isolated statements, it was about a worldview, one that sees disagreement as disloyalty and accountability as persecution. When she asked whether he'd truly called the media the most powerful enemy of the United States, he didn't deny it. He said she was quoting a partial statement. But partial or not, the sentiment was unmistakable: truth itself had become the enemy. And yet amid the tension, Klobuchar did something rare: she didn't grandstand, she reframed. She spoke not to him, but to the country watching. Her tone softened, almost reflective. "Facts matter," she said. It wasn't a line, it was a reminder. That truth isn't a partisan luxury, it's the foundation of democracy. When the truth becomes negotiable, everything else collapses with it. That's why this hearing resonated far beyond Washington. It wasn't just a confirmation, it was a confrontation with a dangerous new normal. A world where leaders can disown their own words, deny evidence, and still claim moral high ground. Where saying "I don't recall" is safer than saying "I was wrong." And where the more confused the public becomes, the easier it is to control them. You could feel the frustration on the committee. Some senators rolled their eyes, others muttered under their breath, but Klobuchar stayed locked in. Every time he tried to pivot, she brought him back to his own record. She even quoted a line from his recent interview, where he'd suggested the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state. Her question was simple: if you believe that, how can you lead the very institution you want to dismantle? He tried to turn it into a joke, mumbling about metaphors and context. But the damage was done. The image of a potential FBI director calling the Bureau itself a threat was unforgettable. Because it wasn't just about words, it was about what those words inspire in others. When people in power treat institutions as enemies, it gives permission for chaos to replace order. And that's when the hearing reached its emotional peak. The senator reminded him, and everyone watching, that leadership in law enforcement isn't about popularity or vengeance, it's about restraint. It's about the discipline to uphold truth, even when it's inconvenient. You're asking to lead an agency that investigates terrorism and espionage, she said. And yet you've described its people as corrupt. How can you expect them to follow you? The camera cut to his face. No answer, just silence. The weight of the moment hung heavy. It wasn't just about one man's career anymore, it was about the precedent it would set. If someone who'd spent years attacking the very agency he wanted to lead could still be confirmed, what message does that send to every public servant who believes in their oath? That's the heart of this story. This wasn't a hearing, it was a warning. A reminder that democracy doesn't end in one big collapse, it erodes slowly, one excuse, one I don't recall at a time. And every time the truth is treated like an opinion, that erosion accelerates. By the time the questioning ended, the senator's composure hadn't cracked once. Her final statement was simple but powerful. She entered into record a letter signed by 56 former FBI agents supporting the need for reform, but warning against politicization. They wrote that the Bureau has never faced such an urgent and compelling need for integrity as it does today. And in that moment, her point was made without another word, because this was never about left or right, it was about reality itself, whether facts still matter more than feelings, whether institutions built on law can survive a culture built on loyalty tests. The cameras may have stopped rolling, but the question remains, what happens when truth becomes negotiable? Every democracy faces a choice between comfort and courage. Comfort lets us look away, tell ourselves it's just politics. Courage means confronting the decay, even when it's inconvenient. Klobuchar's persistence was an act of courage, not because it embarrassed a nominee, but because it reminded the country that accountability still matters. And that's why this moment will linger. It wasn't loud or explosive, but it was historic, because it drew a line in the sand, not between parties, but between truth and its imitators, between leadership that builds trust and leadership that thrives on confusion. So if you're watching this and wondering why it matters, here's why this hearing was about you, about your right to live in a country where truth isn't a marketing slogan, where justice can't be rewritten for convenience, and where integrity still means something. The senator's words still echo long after the cameras turned off. Truth matters. 3 simple words, but in times like these, they sound almost revolutionary. And if you believe that truth still matters, if you believe that integrity and accountability shouldn't be optional, then don't let moments like this fade away. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this video so more people see what's really at stake. Because awareness is our first line of defense, and truth only survives when we fight to keep it alive.